This is the Passive 25K podcast, a podcast built around the vision of creating wealth through passive income for ourselves and others. The idea of creating income while you sleep seems like a dream come true, but for most professionals, turning this into a reality is a different story. On this show, you will hear real people breaking passive income streams down to the basics, giving you the next steps to start your own passive income journey. If you're new to the show, my name is Kyle Reedstrom from Fargo, North Dakota, where I get to work with my team of agents and investors each day to complete our goal of $25,000 a month in passive income. Now, let's get right into our next conversation. This is the Passive 25K podcast with Kyle Reedstrom, of course, home of Passive Income University, your one-stop shop for everything passive income and cash flow coaching. If you want to get a little more in depth and get that one-on-one coaching for getting cash flow in your life, I'm excited today to talk to you about episode 23, Creating Your Franchise Income Stream with Kim Daly. Kim, thank you so much for coming on the podcast.
Thank you, Kyle, for having me as your guest today.
Yes. And, Kim and I were talking a little bit before the show here, saying, we have been proxy to each other online. We're cyber introducing ourselves here. But Kim, I've been able to dive into your content on YouTube, on Instagram, on TikTok, and seeing the things you're doing as a 20-year franchise consultant. I love that terminology, guiding you through the franchise buying process. And this was something that was a little new to me. And I really was drawn in by your key focus. And then I want to let you introduce yourself to our audience a little bit. But your key focus, inspiring people to achieve their dreams of small business ownership through the perfect franchise opportunity. And you're that person, you're the key to unlocking that for people. So Kim, tell us a little more about that and introduce yourself to our audience a little bit.
Yeah, thank you, Kyle. So I am super blessed to have the business I have. I have been doing this for 20 years, which means I just have tons of experience, lots of great relationships that anybody who wants to work with me gets to leverage. So I offer a free service. So my candidates never pay me any money, but my job, like you said, is to help people really understand the true value proposition of a franchise. You use the word mystical. I love that word because it's so true. There are so many misconceptions about franchising out there in the general, there's a general bias against franchising. It's the first reason I started my YouTube channel a couple of years ago, really was just to create sort of like a soapbox for myself to get out and shout to the world. Franchising is the place in the world if you want to own your own business and you don't have an idea or you don't want to start from scratch. This is a whole industry of people helping people. You're in business for yourself, but not by yourself. You don't need experience. You don't need an MBA. You don't need millions of dollars. You come to someone like Kim Daly with the dream. We build your business model based on personal, professional, and financial outcomes. I bring the opportunities to you based on my 20 years of experience and relationship. We match it to where you want the business to be. But then I don't just leave you with my 3 to 5 concepts. I coach you so that you get out of your own way, because there's a lot of head trash in the franchise due diligence process, right? What about the competition, or what about finding, the right kinds of employees, and the places where when people are left on their own, and I would do the same thing. I'm not judging. When we're left on our own devices, we just make up answers and we believe our own self. And most of what we're telling ourselves is not true. So I'm here to help guide that due diligence process and educate about, okay, that's a great thought. Let's go find somebody who can tell us if that's true or not. So I offer a 1 to 2 month process that leads people to a confident decision, yes or no, that will satisfy that craving to want to invest in a business and being leveraged through franchising.
Man, I can feel the energy you have behind what you do, Kim. It's infectious. I love that. And I can already tell that comes from years and years of practice, of expertise in your field. And I know my ears perked when you said free service. And I drew an immediate parallel to what I always tell people in real estate. I say to people, if you're going to get invested in real estate, or you're wondering about investing in real estate, it's who, not how. How are you finding that who that's going to help you get into properties, guide you through this process. Find your go-to real estate agent. And what I heard you say is you are the who to finding the right franchise concept, and your service is free, but you have to get paid somehow too. So can you break that down on how that works? And so there's
Sure.
not a kind of, it's not a too good to be true type of thing, right?
I don't work for free. It's just free for you. So
Yes.
I
Okay.
get paid by franchisors like a recruiter. So rather than franchisors advertising their franchise all over the internet or going to, big expos and not really knowing the caliber of the people, like the worst thing for a franchisor, especially with a hot concept, they come in every day. Let's say they have 100 emails overnight. I mean, how do they know who's serious, who's going to call them back when they call them, right? Who has enough money, who lives in a market that they even have open and viable. But when they come to FranChoice, which is the company that I'm a part of, so I'm actually like a franchisee. So I'm living the life of a franchisee that I'm helping other people to aspire to. So when the franchisors come to us, they say, hey, we're looking for people with these skills who have this much money, who live in these markets. You find them and like them and bring them to us. We like them and award them a franchise. We'll pay you a fee. So it doesn't impact any fee that anybody ever pays, but it's totally free. You never have to pay me any money. And so what I say to people, Kyle, is look, my advice is free. That means it's priceless, not cheap.
That's good. That's good. And I love that. I mean, that makes a ton of sense. That's a complete win-win for everybody involved. The
Yep.
franchisors are getting the franchises are getting vetted, top quality people that are being brought to them by someone like yourself. That's going out and finding the right people and mixing and matching the right people for the right franchise. Not necessarily
Yep.
the right people, but everybody's got a certain fit, is what I'm hearing.
Yep. And also, like during the due diligence process, like I said, there's so many, I call them landmines. So, like saying yes to a franchise or exploring a franchise is sort of like it's like walking a battlefield in a person's mind. And so I'm like the general who's walked this like war path like over and over and over. And I know where every landmine is. So my job, if I'm successful, is to be like, don't fall into that trap of thinking that competition is going to hurt you. Like I can guide people around. So franchisors can come back to me after a conversation with a candidate and say, look, Kim, Kyle was really tripped up on competition, or he was really like asking questions that are, like we're not there in our process yet. Can you just coach him a little bit on the process? So I can be like their helper too, because I'm unbiased. I'm just trying to guide both parties to help the two of you get to know each other, because ultimately investing in a franchise is a mutual evaluation where
Mm.
both sides have to like each other. Ultimately, it's the franchisor's business to award to you before it's your business to quote buy or invest in. So
Gotcha.
we're right. So we're guiding both sides. It saves a lot of people time and just helps everybody get focused, working like the candidates looking at companies that match their interests and their skills and their finances. They're not going, oh, I like to work out, so I just want to own the gym. Like that's not really the best way to invest in a business. Or, hey, Kim, so my community doesn't have a UPS store. So that's what I want to do. Really? Because if the UPS store doesn't match your quality of life goals or the kind of money you want to make, like how successful or happy are you going to be as a UPS franchisee? So those are not the best ways to select a business, but left to our own devices, that's the way that most people go about it, right? What they know or what they think their community needs.
Yeah, and that's such a refreshing way. I mean, just listening to you say that, those are the exact barriers or the thought process that I'm going through in my head when I'm thinking about franchising. Again, I'm maybe a perfect example of someone that's in the business world. I've definitely gone down the route of real estate investing, but open to other concepts, know people that have franchised before, and I'm thinking, well, I've got to creatively solve a problem with the franchise, or I have to bring something that's not here. When really this is a best fit scenario. I mean, you wouldn't invest in a property unless it was the right the right fit for your criteria and your location, like these different concepts. Now, I want to bring it back to the beginning of this, because I think some of these concepts probably have some people's wheels turning. And if again, demystifying this franchising concept of like getting into this, I think so many of our audience members have come to me. I've even had recent conversations with people saying, hey, what are some low barrier to entry or more accessible ways to get into another income stream? Maybe even an income stream that can be more and more passive or fit my lifestyle goals. And franchising is something that comes up. People know people in the space that have done this. And so if we started from the beginning for people that are just fresh on this, that are just listening to this, how would you take them through these next steps? Like, start from the beginning for us.
Absolutely, Kyle. So the first thing we're going to do is I'm going to get to know you. So I'm infinitely more interested in what you're trying to create with clarity, personally, professionally, and financially, and in what time frame, than I am ever interested in what you think you want to own. Because the business ends up becoming the pass-through vehicle that's driving an outcome. So what I mean by that is you invest in that hobby because you love it. I love to work out. I've got to be in the gym. But the gym doesn't make you the kind of money or requires too much time in addition to your full-time job or your kids, right? You were looking for something more semi-absent. So how happy are you going to be in that gym? But what if there's another opportunity that makes you more money, that allows you to quit your job and only requires you, let's say, less than 20 hours a week? So once you quit your job, you've got people in place, you're leveraged through people and process and brands and technology. Now you're down to part-time hours, having improved quality of life. But you're like, oh, but that business, I didn't really even know I was qualified to own that. But guess what happens? That business you didn't think you were qualified to own becomes the greatest thing you ever stumbled upon, because money and quality of life drive passion every single day of the week. So,
Yes.
I got to take people out of that. I got to do what I love. You're going to do what you love in terms of the skill set you're putting into the business, the people you're creating jobs for, the customers you're serving, the problem you want to solve, right? You're going to do that. But there's many different widgets, if you will, that can satisfy those characteristics versus just getting hyper focused on the widget at the expense of the role that you play, the people you're in business with, the financial return, right? And ultimately the outcome, because this is driving your life to some new place. And if you're never going to get to the new place, the vehicle wasn't the right one.
Yeah. It's so counter. This is such a paradigm shift of, usually you're starting with like, hey, what are the stats? That's what matters most. What you're saying is really the opposite of that, which I'll let you keep going. This is great.
Yeah. So once we get to know each other through I have a very clear process, two-step process, get to know you and your spouse or your partner. If you're investing with a partner, we've laid out the characteristics that are most important to you, and I can build your personal business model. So now I go into the database and I match your model up against these characteristics and bring you the top 3 to 5 options with the territories all mapped out. So during this getting to know you process too, Kyle, I'm also going to be educating you about what your money buys, because there's a lot of myths about the money and the fees, those evil franchisors, right? They're just there to take your money, and why is franchising so expensive, Kim? So before we start talking about money in or what you think you want to invest, I've got to stop and educate you on what your money buys. So there is a myth out there that the more money you put into a business, the bigger the return. Absolutely untrue all day long. Money is correlated to time. So the lower the investment in a franchise business, the bigger the investment of owner time commitment from the beginning. On the flip side, the bigger the investment, meaning the more leverage you have, the smaller the owner time commitment. So we haven't really said this yet, but franchising doesn't have to be full time. Compared to going out and starting a business on your own, where owners are going to be working 100 hours a week, you can actually invest in a franchise and start out in a semi-absentee business with about 20 hours a week or less. And in some cases, even smaller than that. Like if you invested in a laundromat, which is a franchise, This is going to be a really big capital investment, right? To build it out, washers, dryers, all that plumbing and electrical. But then how many hours once it's open? Maybe 5 hours a week by an owner to take coins out of machines and take your wheelbarrow of money to the bank. So, but you compare that, let's say, to something that's home based, right? Home based in a franchise does not mean you're working from home. What it means is, hey, I don't have to take on the overhead of a location because nobody's coming to me. I'm going out and driving sales, finding my customers where they are. So those are lower investments of money, but who's going to drive sales better than the owner? No one, not in
Hmm.
the beginning. So these are very full-time commitments by the investor.
Yeah, that inverse relationship that you talked about there, I think that leads us to a truth that I'm learning here. Would it be a truth for me to say, if I came to you and said, "Hey Kim, I want a pretty low dollar investment, and I don't want to, and I want it to be very passive." Am I trying to mix two, have my cake and eat it too type of thing, or what would you say to me in that sense?
Yes, you are. In most cases, there are rare exceptions to the rule, but in most cases you are. Look, it takes time or money to make money. So when you have a bigger investment, you have a physical store with a brand on the side that's drawing people in, that's grossly oversimplified. But you have a marketing plan. You can put a manager in place to respond to the customers. You've got teams of people that are working with your customer. You're leveraged through all of that. And that's what buys you back your time and allows you as the owner to work on your business while your team of people work in the business. So let's give a specific example. Everybody here has probably heard of massage envy, right? Great
Yeah.
example. An owner of a massage envy is not checking people into the spa, nor are they giving a massage. They are CEOs who manage a salon or studio manager and therapists who have a degree to work in their business, right? They're managing customer experience. They're managing maybe multi store development. They're managing marketing plans. They're making sure customers are coming in and there's a conversion process to selling them a membership. They're managing that customer experience so those membership retention rates stay high. They're managing financials. So they're really bringing an executive leadership skill to work on their business. And because that location doesn't need them, that's where the leverage for the scale comes from. So just like in real estate, in a business, the wealth is created through scale. It's never going to be about one team or one truck or one location. It always is about scale. So if you have the team of people in place in your massage envy and the traffic is good, you get this thing up and going, you're like, okay, so one location can net me whatever, 150 grand, but I want to make 450, so I need three. So then in the beginning, the first couple of years, you're going to be more focused on getting those all three locations up and running and the right teams in place. And then you're going to be settling in to kind of manage the ongoing growth of those locations. Does that make sense, Kyle?
That makes a ton of sense, and I think it was well stated. And that's something that I'm grasping onto here. But what I wanted to touch on was so much of the vision around our community and people that are coming to us that want to get into these income streams is passivity, right? It's eventual, as you stated, wealth, which is a component of resources and time. So talk to me about. I get the concept that you have to put in the work. What makes money? Either money or time. Time is money. Putting time on the task is going to create money as well. Is there routes with some of these systems? I know we're generalizing, to turn these passive as you go, or turn these more, the hour burden is lowered over time. Are most of these kind of scaled out, or is it, maybe that's the word we're looking for here, is
Yeah.
scale brings the freedom essentially.
No, absolutely. And like I said, so there are a select group of franchises that are what we call semi-absentee. So a business is never going to be truly passive, like investing in a piece of land and then just knowing it's making it's building equity over time, right? A business needs a leader. Somebody has to be there, but it doesn't necessarily have to be the owner, right? If you've been leading global teams in your corporate job and you feel qualified to pay a manager and lead that manager, then you can be hands off. There are franchisees that own businesses in states they don't live in. They manage
Mm-hmm.
people over Zoom, right? They go on vacation for a month and they know their business is fine because they've got the right team of people in place. So did it start out that way? Maybe if you invested in the right business and you're the right leader of the team, right? Because the other thing, Kyle, is people will say, well, Kim, I bought this franchise to be semi-absent, but I can't really step away from it. And as I like dig into that, what they're saying, it's not that they can't because of the business structure, it's they can't because of their own like it's their investment. They're worried about the return, right? It's our own sickness as entrepreneurs that like we're control freaks and we're the only one who can do it. So I'm afraid to let go and let somebody else do the job. So you have to be the owner who can let it go and trust that you've hired the right people and then coach and mentor them to be in it while you work on it.
And I love that you're setting that expectation, because I think if you have that end in mind with doing this, you can fight through the periods of time where it does take your time or it does take your effort to get to a greater vision for where it can be. But as long as you're not under the spell of, I bought this franchise so it would just run itself, I think that that's such an important thing to make sure people
Well,
know about this industry. It's the same with rental properties. It really is, like you
right.
can get them to a point where it can work really well and be really streamlined. But that comes with the right property and the right tenant and the right manager and then the right, maintenance team.
Everything, there's a process. And if this is your first time investing in a business, you should want to learn. Like you're drinking from a fire hose, basically, like for the first 6 months, maybe a year, because not only are you learning how to be a business owner, you may be learning a whole new business that you've never even been a part of before, right? So that even if you're not in it every day, you want to feel qualified to manage your team to help solve customers' problems, right? So again, if you don't want to be that person, then you can pay a general manager to be that person and maybe give them some equity, upside so that they really feel like this is their business. There's always ways to do it, but again, it's going to cost you money to hire that person and give them equity, or it's going to cost you time to be that person in the beginning until you've got the right teams of people in place. Now, on my podcast, on my YouTube channel, I have interviewed so many business owners who share their ramp up and people who, it took them 1 year to get there, people who took it six months to get there, people who it took 4 years. And so when people say to me, Kim, can I make this kind of money or can I be that owner that's putting in less than 20 hours a week? I throw it back. I say, I don't know. Can you? Because everything is possible here. This is business ownership. It's about investing in the right business with the right systems and the right leverage, and then you becoming the owner who can apply the maximum pressure on the right, levers with the right people and then let it happen. But
Mm.
you've got to be willing to get in there and learn. And through the 1 to 2 month due diligence process, you meet other people because you will validate with other franchise owners before you say yes to the franchise. So you can meet other people. I mean, the vast majority of people I work with are either big time real estate investors with lots of properties looking for diversification in their real estate portfolio, or maybe cash flow because they have a lot of equity, but maybe they want more cash flowing returns. Um, and or they're W-2 employees who have very full-time jobs and families, but they're looking to get out, or they're looking to create another revenue stream in case there's a layoff. Like
Mm-hmm.
just earlier today, I interviewed a guy who was employed, and about a year and a half ago, he decided to invest in a food truck. Now, I don't do a lot of food. I am really keen on this particular business. It's not because it's food, but because it's very, very profitable business. It just happens to be food. It's a food truck. And anyway, he said that, and he started the business in February of this past year. It's now December at the time we're recording this. So in the first 10 months, he's been able to make more money than he ever made in his corporate job. And about 2
Wow.
weeks ago, he was notified that he was losing his job. And he's in the interview today. He goes, Kim, he goes, I panicked like out of like whatever, like just like normal reaction for about a minute. And then I realized, hey, that's good because I got an event I got to take the food truck to in 3 hours. And he said he went to that event and he made more money in 3 hours than he would make in a whole week of working on that corporate job. And so
Man.
he was like, it's just a mindset shift that I don't have to depend on somebody else for a steady paycheck, that I've got something that now I can control. And I said, you feel empowered. He goes, that's the best word. Like the empowerment of, and he goes, in making decisions, just being able to decide, hey, I'm going to take this event, or hey, no, my family's going to be away. We're not going to take that event, compared to when you have a job and you work for somebody else and they're like, hey, no, that's a work day for you. You got to be here.
Yeah. Wow. Wow. Thank you for sharing that story, Kim. That I think that really hit for a lot of people. It goes to the concept of digging your well before you're thirsty. And I think that time is happening for some people. I've heard of layoffs happening. I'm a lot of us entrepreneurs aren't like the sky's falling, but it's interesting to see the people that are getting nervous or people that have the fear looming behind them of a W-2 job or a boss or a corporate structure. It consumes you. That's got to be terrifying, right? That's the riskiest thing you could do. And you just shared a story of, like you say, empowerment, where he grieved the loss of his job for 2 seconds because he realized, man, this other opportunity is totally turning me on more and it's making me more money to boot, right? I mean, how cool is that? That's got to be
I'm
pretty
gonna do
rewarding
this
for you.
job. Yeah. And as I get to work with you, if I get to work with you, I want to empower you even further because I'm going to share part of my story with you. So, I've been a franchisee of my business now for 20 years, and I spent the first 8 years basically recreating the average performance of a franchise consultant. And this was in the last recession. It was around 2011. I just started asking myself more clarity, like for more clarity in my life. I wanted bigger goals. I knew that I was made for more. And I set my sights on a bigger financial goal. I really didn't have a plan the first year, other than just kind of like switching my focus a little bit in my business to, things that I really couldn't control, to maximizing what I could control. And 1 year later, Kyle, I had built the largest franchise consulting business in the history of franchise consulting. And that was over a decade ago. I've continued to grow that even this year in 2022. God willing, we got a couple more weeks to the end of the year, but I am dangerously close to my biggest year ever, again, breaking my own historical record. So I don't tell people this to like brag about Kim Daly. I tell because in sharing what I do and how I am empowered when I have clear goals and I wake up and come to work every day to accomplish a few very simple tasks that are driving me to my daily revenue goals. And that's the beauty of my last name, the daily revenue goals. And this clarity allowed me to accomplish something that had never been accomplished. And I mean, look, I'm a nutritional biochemist by degree. I was on my way to medical school when I stumbled into franchising. I don't have an MBA. But I have constantly sought self-improvement, personal growth. Like, how do I get better at what I do? If I can give more, I can get more. And
Yes.
I've mastered it. And so that's what I want to empower people with, because when you say yes to your franchise, that's amazing. But I want you to go on and live the life you're saying yes to. And those are
Yes.
two separate things.
Man. And it's the reason why everybody starts going down this path. Sometimes it's forgotten, but that's such a great way to start it, to bring that to the forefront in all of this, Kim. And I thank you for that. And we're going to take a little break. And when I come back, you've laid such a great foundation for where we're at in this franchise concept, breaking down some of these questions and this mysticism. I want to get into some of the things to watch out for with this. I think people, again, are feeling like, I don't know what I don't know. And talking to you that's been in this and seen it all, I think it'd be great for you to share that with our audience. So we will get into that when we get back from our break. Episode 23, Creating Your Franchise Income Stream with Kim Daly. Hey, wanted to take a quick break from this week's episode. Wondering if you ever ask yourself, how do I get started in this stuff? Or if I'm already doing it, what are some next steps or people that are doing the same thing that I want to do, people on this passive income journey? Well, we were getting that question and we created a community of passive income investors called Passive Income University. This is a place where you can watch videos, things that we've done, where we put tools and information, where we've built a community of people that can communicate, ask questions, and grow together to start their passive income journey. And eventually we complete our passive income journey together. If you're interested in more info on Passive Income University, check us out at p25kg.com. Okay, we are back with the Passive 25K podcast with Kyle Reedstrom. We are in episode 23, creating your franchise income stream. There we go, with Kim Daly. Kim, you were sending us so much great information in the first part of this episode. And really set our mindset around franchising and our priorities in getting a franchise started up. Some of the initial steps you would take us through to get this going. You know, there's a barrier for a lot of people to take the step towards contacting someone like you or towards getting into franchising. And it's maybe based out of some fear. Maybe they've seen franchise brands start up and close in our area. You know, there's different perceptions people have. I think of, you spoke earlier to the food and the retail industry and how you have certain opinions around those spaces. So I really want to get into what to watch out for and maybe some red flags for us to beware of. And I'm going to let you roll with that.
I love it. So yes, first of all, not all franchisors are created equal. This is another reason Kim Daly has a business. So I don't work with everybody. There are about 3,000 or 4,000 opportunities out there on the market as franchise businesses at any one time. I've been doing this for 20 years. My inventory, of course, is dynamic. We're always learning about new companies. We're selling out brands, so they go out of our inventory. But we maintain probably about the top 10% in our inventory. But here's what I'll tell you, Kyle. The reality is, if you look at the companies that I'm doing business with year over year, I tend to focus on people are like, oh, what's your favorite franchise, Kim? And I'll be like, look, I don't really have a favorite brand. I have favorite characteristics. So I love low fixed costs and big, fat, healthy margins. I love businesses where investors get to sleep peacefully at night, knowing that even if no one's walking in, we're not bleeding to keep our doors open. So but this isn't about me. It's just about me kind of coaching your thought process to a place where I can bring opportunity to you and I'm leveraging relationships. So coming back to the point I was making is I don't work with everybody. I work with people, number one, that I get to know, like, and trust. I feel like if I like them and feel like I can trust them, that I can extend that relationship to you. And I'm just not going to bring you one. I'm going to bring you 3 to 5. And then I'm going to teach you how to vet a franchise, just like I vetted them, so that you can discern for yourself among this small group that matches your business characteristics and your goals. Is there one that feels like the best fit for you? So the first red flag is to make sure that you're investing in, you're working with a franchise consultant who has experience, who has relationships that you can leverage. The second thing would be to be looking, when you're looking for a good franchisor partner, look, they need a track record of success in franchising. If you are guinea pig number one, it's not a franchise, right? If they've never started a franchise before, this is their first business, they turned it into a franchise, and you're like one of the first 25, that's not a good investment. That is a startup business in the making. Do you know the statistic about business startups? I'll tell you, 90% of those businesses fail. And the same statistic in franchising, right? So a franchisor is not really proven or stable until they get to 100 units. That's the stabilizing point of a franchise. But for most of my franchises, that can happen in the first year of development. That's about 30 franchisees who all move forward with 3 territories. So it's the same things you would look for if you were going to start a business. You want to be partnered with good people because this is a partnership. You want these people to have experience and a track record in the industry and in franchising. And the last thing is you need them to be properly capitalized. Look, the number one reason any business fails is lack of money. So if the franchisor thinks they're going to exist off a royalty, run fast. They need private
Gotcha.
equity money. They need corporate stores. They need other streams of revenue to support. Royalties will be awesome long term, but they have to give a lot to their franchise system before they can receive a lot in a royalty stream.
Hmm. Wow. Wow. That was really good. And I love the 100 units. I mean, you could even I think of going down the path of vetting franchises. This is a proper question to ask: is, how many units have you guys sold, even yearly or to date? And knowing 30 people that have said yes for 3 territories. I loved that stat. You know, other things that I want to keep you going on this. Other big red flags you're looking out for, because I feel like I've been approached. I know people and investors that have been approached with bringing franchises to an area or opportunities. And it's like, well, the first thing that I would ask Kim is, hey, what do the numbers look like? And the numbers don't always tell the whole story, right? So we'll keep going with this.
Yes, absolutely. I am not a big fan of like following the numbers first. Like
Hmm.
this is about being in business for yourself, but not by yourself. So you've got to get to know the people and you've got to like discern, are they interested in getting to know me? Really
Hmm.
good franchisors are awarding franchises. They're not selling it to anybody who fogs up a mirror. Like they have a process to take you through. How much leadership are they demonstrating during your due diligence process? Like really good franchisors will have broken their investigation into about 4 to 6 phone calls where they're going to give you bite-sized chunks of information, an overview, then go through unit economics, maybe one call dedicated to their franchise disclosure document, their legal document, one call dedicated to their marketing and training and technology, right? The kind of lifting the hood of the car and seeing like, how are you going to help me make that money? Another call dedicated to how we define a territory and playing with maps, and then maybe having you go drive some neighborhoods so you can visualize what your life would be like if you had a business serving homeowners. If you have a business that requires a brick and mortar location, then one of those calls would be dedicated to how they are going to help you find the right location, negotiate that lease, and get that store constructed for as little money and as fast time as possible, right? So their leadership during your 1 to 2 month process should absolutely warm you. It should
Hmm.
show you they genuinely are interested in educating you and getting to know you. And then at the end of that, we do what's called a meet the team day or a discovery day, where you get to get on an airplane and go out to a corporate office. You get to immerse yourself in the brand, maybe go, try the donut or take the workout or have the massage or walk the store so that you can feel what it's going to look like and what it's going to feel like when you say yes. They oftentimes will send you a shirt. So when you show up to Discovery Day, you're wearing the company attire. Like
Hmm.
you're a brand ambassador. You want to be that owner that can bring that brand back to your community and feel proud to wear that shirt and to go
Hmm.
into the community and have people in the community get to know you as the face of that brand. So this Discovery Day is a really big and important day. I say we do all of the logical data, stuff at home. Like we're building the business plan and we're learning about marketing and training and technology. And then we get face to face to break bread together and to make this relational. And
Hmm.
I want my candidates, when they go to that meet the team day, I say, forget about everything, go and just enjoy the experience. Take in the culture. How does it
Wow.
feel? Because if these people don't feel like people that inspire you, they don't have an energy about the company that you feel you're going to be able to grow in and be mentored in, what good is it? You might as well go be an entrepreneur
Hmm.
because that's what you're buying. You're buying people, not widgets.
Yeah. Yeah, and it's just so valuable for you to say that from 20 years of experience to come back to you're buying people. The people are what matter. And so much of that is true. In anything I've learned in business, it always comes back to the people. And for some reason, one of the myths in my head I keep saying is, oh, since this is franchising, it's more about the systems and the numbers, and it's more of the scale, right? But no, if people have started this. People are the ones that have grown this into anything that's successful. And I wanted to ask you that myth. I automatically think because they're a franchise that they have systems. And I bet you've seen people that have gotten into a franchise and they've been left to figure it out all on their own. So when you talked about vetting that aspect, it was a big light bulb for me saying, hey, not everybody probably has this perfect system that you're running through. I'd hope that they do if they're selling me a franchise, but I mean,
Well, you know what, Kyle? So I love to say that there's a different franchise investment for every investor. So there are some people, like if you're an engineer, not just a stereotype, if you're an engineer or you are in financial services, people that are numbers and data driven, they like to have every I dotted and every T crossed. Being a pioneer in an emerging franchise where all the systems are not fully created and vetted, probably not the right investment for you. But on the
yeah,
flip side, if you've owned like me, you've owned businesses for 20 plus years, right? You know what drives success in a business. The systems aren't as important as just finding people that you genuinely enjoy being mentored and learning from. So
gotcha.
again, part of my vetting process is to figure out your risk tolerances, your personality, your background, because I don't want to throw you to the wolves. I don't want to feed you to a system that has every I dotted and every T crossed that I would suffocate in. But if that's what makes you thrive, I want to bring that to you. Right.
Mm,
So there's a
100%.
different franchise culture, investment processes and procedures. It's all different. And there's one out there for every single person that's going to feel good, maybe multiples that are going to feel good. And that's part of what I'm bringing to your equation is leading you to the ones that are going to feel good for you, because there
Yeah.
is something magical about being one of the first franchisees in a business. But it's not right for everybody, but that first to market advantage is one of the greatest advantages if that brand goes on to become the next big American thing.
Yeah.
Because when the whole world wakes up and everybody wants what you have and there's no more territory left in your area, guess what? That's when you say, well, you can buy mine, pay me
Yeah.
6 times what I've created,
Yeah.
and I'll go away happily. And people get it. When we look at the buyouts of businesses from like Planet Fitness or Massage Envy or Orange Theory, the buyouts, the multiples, these owners, these pioneering franchisees were getting were crazy big. Now, those businesses don't hang on to those multiples. There's just a moment in the market when it all comes together, right? But for somebody
Yeah.
else, that ride is too scary. I don't want all that, Kim. I don't want a peak, but I don't want a valley. Just give me the supercuts, the thing, or the thing that's just tried and true, stable and steady. It's always going to be needed. And I'm just gonna, put my money in and I'm just gonna be happy with that steady return. And it's all good, Kyle. There's something out there for everybody.
Yeah. And it goes to your matching concept of you really got to find the right opportunity for the right person.
Yep.
And you mentioned that you guys are representing the top 10%. You guys are constantly vetting new and trying to bring in these franchises that you really believe in. And I want to see how much I can quiz you on like industry specific or like
Okay.
categorize these, because I want to know. I don't want to generalize here, but I want to know about things like the food industry is what I think of. I want to know about things like you mentioned Supercuts, a service or Massage Envy. I think of those, those service style franchises. Do you point people in any direction? I know that I'm probably pushing on like the right matches for the right person, right? But like, I would love to hear some trends in that way or anything that you're like beware of as far
Yeah,
as
yeah,
like
yeah.
industry
So
specific.
I am the queen. Like I even have videos on my YouTube channel about no food, no food, no food. And I love my food franchisors, so I'm so sorry, but I'm just not a fan of a lot of fixed costs and a lot of variable costs. Like, when you look at a food-based business, people think everybody has to eat. Like, look at the line of Chick-fil-A. That's got to be a great investment. Well, not necessarily when you factor in number one, the big cash outlay to build it, even though Chick-fil-A, you don't actually build it. That's a different conversation. but you've got all the minimum wage employees. It's a 6 or a 7 day a week business, right? Lots of moving parts, long days, very slim margin to begin, perishable product, health codes. There's so many factors, right? There are just faster, easier, better ways to make money. So
Hmm.
I'm not going to be your consultant if you're looking for food. I will challenge you all day long. Even people that say, I'm only buying food, I say, okay, well, if you're going to work with me, let's just have some fun. Let's just cast a wider net and let's just see what happens. Nobody ever ends up in food. They just don't know what I already know until I show them. So when you
Wow.
ask me, what do I like businesses with controlled fixed costs. So it can be something brick and mortar like Massage Envy or a yoga studio or fitness because you have controlled fixed costs. So what I love about that is the predictable scalable revenue that you get from membership. So
Mm.
when you have a lease and okay, so my fixed expenses are my labor, my lease, and my insurance. Okay, so let's say that that that's going to be 20,000 a month and that's covered with 200 memberships, let's say. So you're like, game on. How quickly can I get to my 200 members? And then what happens when you get to 300, 500, 800 members? What happens is your bottom line that maybe started out at 15, 17, maybe 20% starts creeping up to 25, 30, 40. Like there are some businesses wrapped in a membership where on $1 million in top line revenue, people clear 400 grand. That's
Yeah.
never happening in food because you
Yeah.
cannot escape the expense. No matter how many Subway sandwiches you push out the door, you always have the cost of the bread, the cost of the meat, and the cost of the human to make it. So you can keep
Wow.
growing and growing and growing sales, but your expenses trail along. So I just like businesses where we can leave the expenses in the dust and keep adding to that bottom line. And who doesn't?
Yeah. You're singing music to my ears. This is what single family rental properties are. A lot of fixed expenses. Yes, there's some variable expenses. And then as we can move rent, of course, it's like that makes sense. And again, I'm drawing that parallel. But it's interesting to hear you say like a hard stop on food. If you want to get into food, I'm not your gal. So
Don't
that's
call
very
me.
insightful. And I hope
Go somewhere else.
I'm thinking of some of our audience members that might be in the food industry being like, this gal knows what
Oh,
she's
wait,
talking
no,
about here.
Kyle.
Yeah.
Food people are the easiest people to talk out of food. Like it's just like a former entrepreneur is the easiest person to talk into the value proposition of a franchise. If you've ever created a business from scratch and you know how freaking hard that is and how much time and energy and hustle and money it takes, I mean that's a one in a lifetime. I'm done. Right. So
Yeah.
those entrepreneurs who say, I'm ready to grow, they turn to franchising all day long because if somebody, I'll pay you a franchise fee to have that business already tried and true and ready and the system's ready to go and the marketing and the technology and just be able to start executing and moving toward profitability from day one.
Man, that's it's hard to argue, and that's probably why you win that argument, and I love it. So I got to ask, is there anything else? I mean, you said food. Is there anything else you really kind of try to maneuver people away from?
Food's my big one, my big hang up. I love service, anything in service. I love home
Okay.
services. The time we're in right now in 2022, there's a lot of uncertainty in are we in a recession? Are we going into recession? There's a lot of fear. I feel it. You know what's so funny, Kyle? I tell everybody I would take a pandemic over the uncertainty in our economy right now all day long, which sounds funny. But in 2020, what I realized in my business, I had the exact same year in 2020 as I had in 2019 in terms of revenue and the number of owners I helped. But the thing is that like only the hardy people showed up. Like some people just were like, hey, man, we don't know what's happening. I'm not even going to think about a franchise right now. But the people, especially investors, they understand that, when there's obstacle, there's opportunity if you're willing to look. And
Mm.
I mean, they were coming out and they're hardy by nature because they've invested before. So the pandemic was like nothing. Right
Yeah.
now, the fear and uncertainty, it's like crazy. It's making people crazy. And I mean, I've had more people like tripping over things like I've got to hire an attorney to review my agreements. Like I've had more people in the last 2 months than I had in 20 years. I'm just like, what? what's happening here? Like this is not something you have to do, but it's just this, pervasive feeling of uncertainty that's making everybody crazy. So I love home services because they have that essential quality to it. Like if you have an HVAC company, if you have a flooring company, right? I mean, look, if you have a restoration company, if you get mold or water damage in your home from a roof leak, you don't want to call me. You have to call me. We have a
Mm-hmm.
drain cleaning franchise, right? They're like, Kim, nobody's shopping around for drain cleaning. If you're a friendly voice, you answer and you can come out that day, you're booking a job. So for those investors that are worried about a recession, are we in one or it doesn't matter. And what I want to teach everybody, regardless of the economy, because this is what I figured out for myself over a decade ago, there's a way that you can make yourself and your business recession proof. And it does not matter what business you're in. You, the owner, can make yourself bulletproof once you understand what really drives success in your business. Now, sure, economies, presidents, elections, all this stuff can make your business harder and easier, right? But the thing is, if you're going to be a business owner, you can't control the economy. So if
Yeah.
you're waiting for the world to be perfect to invest, let's be real, you're never going to do it, right? You just
Mm-hmm.
got to jump in. And if we're at the bottom and it's the hardest, guess what? You're learning some really good, you're building some really good muscle. And when it gets easier, and then you never have to worry about a recession again
Yes.
because you're like, been there, done that, no big deal, right?
Yeah. That's such good perspective. Amen to that. I hope we're just going to take that blip and be like, play that on replay right there, Kim. That was amazing. And Kim, we're running out of time, but I really loved your share, the story you shared with the W-2 and the food truck, which was food, by the way. That was interesting. But yes, you said you liked that one a lot.
Because it's not food with big brick and mortar. It's
Yes, it was food.
movable.
That's
It's
good. Okay.
flexible hours, only 2 employees, huge
I
margins,
got
no
you.
perishable waste. It's good food.
Okay, that's a winner. I like that. So it's not an absolute no, everybody. Just so everybody hears that. But I'd love to hear a few more stories, or we probably have time for one more story on like an experience that has happened for you with someone you've worked with that's come to you. You found the fit for them, and then you've seen their kind of their lifestyle and their business owner opportunity transform.
I have so many stories, Kyle. It's the greatest thing of what I do. And actually on my website, thedailycoach.com, I have thousands of testimonials. Like I ask every single person whether they say yes or they say no, because if I've done my job, I've taught them and that's my job and I want them to review what I've done. So you can read hundreds of testimonials from people, but a really fun and inspiring story because I think that there's also a myth out there that can you really build wealth in a franchise? This story I've captured on my YouTube channel and my podcast. It's the same. And this guy he was a white collar. He worked for JP Morgan, executive. He was a global leader of people in the bank. He got tired of the bank. He said, screw this. He lives in Houston, Texas. He's like, I'm going to start my own business. So he invested in, of course, a very natural conclusion, Paul Davis Restoration. I'm joking. I'm rolling my eyes. A restoration company for a white collar banker? Like, really? What does he know
Yeah.
about restoration? Nothing. But what he did know was global leadership. He was a leader of teams of people all over the world. He applied those leadership teams to his business. And in 4 years, he went from zero revenue to $21 million in revenue in water mitigation.
Wow.
So when I interviewed him, he said, Kim, I'm not stopping until I get to 100 million. I think that
Wow.
there's a misconception about what you can accomplish in a franchise. So I just want to blast through that one because look, we all get excited when we hear stories about how much money can be made. Now, is everybody in Paul Davis making that kind of money? Heck no, right? Part of my coaching will be to explain to you if it's so good, Kim, and the systems are so proven, why are there varying levels of performance? But that's for another conversation.
Mm. Yeah, and that's so cool to hear, you to break that down and know that you can really there's not a ceiling to this. So I think that is a misconception I have is like the franchise, you kind of want to be the one that's franchising an opportunity, not being a franchisee, and it's like
Really? You know what I'll say to that, Kyle? when people are like, "Oh, I have this great idea. I want to turn it into a franchise." I'm like, "Really? Really? Do you want me to tell you what I really think about that?" So when you're the franchisor, listen, it's like it's worse than being a parent. I have 2 teenage boys. It's worse than being a parent because you're going to give your heart and soul to those people. The majority of those people have their life savings invested in your business. No matter
Mm,
how much you do, it's never enough. When it's all working, they take all the credit. And when it's not working, guess whose fault it is?
man. All right. All
So
right. You
being
got me
a
on that one.
franchisor, it's cracked up to me.
That's good. This is good. This is such good stuff. Kim, this has been a joy talking to you. I'm excited for future conversation. I'm excited for this relationship to continue. And for people that are also really drawn to what you're saying and what you do, which I know there's going to be many, how can they find you? How can they follow you? How can they engage with Kim Daly?
Awesome. The best place really to go is to this YouTube channel I've mentioned many times. So if you just go to your browser and type in Kim Daly, Daly, kimdaly.tv, I have nearly 500 videos. They're in audio format as well on Spotify and iTunes and Apple, but YouTube is the greatest landing place. And of course, from there, you can link to my website, my contact forms. You can find me multiple ways once you get to kimdaly.tv. And I would be honored to help anybody, whether you're just, I don't know, Kim, I think I just want to learn. Absolutely. You know what I say to that? Saying yes to a franchise is the natural thing to do when you've asked enough questions and you're satisfied with enough of the answers. Anytime before that, you're going to say no. You've got to engage in the process and get educated. And saying no is a perfectly acceptable answer.
Wow. Wow. Great wisdom at the end, Kim. This has been so full of wisdom, so full of breaking down myths. I think we've knocked down some barriers for myself and a lot of our audience members. Thanks so much again for being on the podcast. Again, I look forward to continuing this relationship.
Thank you, Kyle. It's such a pleasure to share what I know. As you can tell, I get super excited about the opportunity to just like teach people what I know.
This has been the Passive 25K podcast. If you enjoyed today's episode, be sure to subscribe so you don't miss future conversations. Also, tell us what you thought by leaving a comment below on today's topic. If something really hit with you, don't be afraid to share this with someone else that's interested in passive income. Thanks again for tuning in. I'll catch you next time for another episode of the Passive 25K podcast.